Hi, Mom.
Hello, Adele.
How you doing?
I'm great.
What happened to you this week?
This week, I, by myself,
Mm-hmm.
built a studio for us.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I put that on your task week.
Oh, you did,
Yes.
did you?
I said, you build the podcast
And
studio.
what did you do? What did you build?
I made cheese souffle, but not enough to share with you.
I noticed that. And yet I share my studio
Thank
with
you.
You're welcome.
I don't share my cheese souffle with you, but it
No,
was really good.
But you're more selfish.
I know. And we watched, we picked up Severance again.
We did. I love watching Severance with you and your family, particularly your son.
You need to come over and watch it with us because we don't understand it without him.
We have no idea. You and I are
It's
at
too
the
hard.
most literal level of Severance.
And I forget everything from the past week.
Everything. So Jason has to give us a recap of the episode
And
before.
many pauses. He's going to stop watching it with us.
He will.
You know what? We are the severed. Every week. We are the severed four that he has to deal with no memory.
I love that.
We just tell us what this show is about.
We are the severed. Oh, Adele.
Well, thanks for the studio. I'm really excited about it because I can host my friends here.
Yes, and this is our first episode for So Mom of our second season.
Yes, which is very exciting.
So it's a very special day, and we have a very, very special guest.
I know. In fact, I was talking about this when the second season was just a little glimmer in our eye. I said, and you know what we can do when we have the second season? We can invite Julie Buxbaum to be our guest.
I know.
And guess what? Here she is.
She is here in the studio that I built.
With your bare hands.
With my bare hands and one hammer and 4 nails.
And a guitar.
And a guitar. Julie Buxbaum is, first of all, just the most fabulous person, and she happens to be a New York Times bestselling author of the young adult novels Tell Me 3 Things, What to Say Next, Hope and Other Punchlines, Admission, and most recently, Year on Fire. The Area 51 Files is a best-selling series for readers age 8 to 12. She's also the author of 2 critically acclaimed novels for adults, The Opposite of Love and After You. Her work has been translated into 25 languages, and she is a finalist for the Edgar Award. The Edgar Allan Poe Awards, commonly known as the Edgar Awards, are prestigious annual awards that honor the best in mystery fiction, nonfiction, television, film, and theater. They're named after, obviously, the famous American writer Edgar Allan Poe. So that is quite something, Julie Buxbaum. Your writing has also appeared in various publications, including the New York Times. Julie is a former lawyer and graduate of the University of Pennsylvania and Harvard Law School. She lives in Los Angeles with her husband, 2 children, and more books than is reasonable.
And most importantly, my friend.
Yay! Yes, that is the most important thing on that. I don't know why it is not on the official bio.
I know. Why isn't that the first thing that you said?
Julie Buxbaum is Adele's great friend.
That's my brag. I'm done. This podcast is finished. I'm really excited that you're here. Thank you for coming, Julie, to hang out.
My absolute pleasure. I listen to the pod, so it's so fun to be here and be on the other side of it.
You and I have been guests together on other podcasts, especially this month, not just in general, but this month because we've been promoting our co-written novel under our pseudonym, Taylor Hutton. to promote Strike and Burn.
We need to add that to the bio.
I know.
Co-writer of Strike and
Oh
Burn
my
as
gosh.
Taylor Hutton.
That's true.
I need to add that to my website.
That's a part of your life now, like it or not.
It is. I like it. I love it.
And your next bio reading, it will be there. So I have a question.
Okay.
Knowing one of you very well and knowing you, Julie, getting to know you better and just think the world of you. And of course, I know your children and your husband. And so it feels very warm and cozy having you here. But I also know you are two very strong women with strong voices of your own. And how did you, because I've read Strike and Burn.
You were a beta reader.
I was a beta reader. Even though Julie said, please don't let your mom read this.
I was a little nervous for the spicier scenes and having to make eye contact with you after. I respect you very much. And so it's a little weird for you to know that that sort of stuff can come out of our fingertips.
We should probably back up and talk about how this book came to be, because you were one of the first people that I met when I came out here in 2021 to Los Angeles, following my mother, who came out here 7 years prior to that. And we met through a mutual friend.
We did.
Now 3.5 years ago.
Yes. And when our mutual friend told me I was going to be meeting you, she said to me, and I will never forget this because it made me laugh so hard. She said, you and Adele are both deeply weird people, but in very different ways, but in ways in which you will understand each other's weird and you will be best friends. And she was right.
She was
so right.
You started to come over and we were writing together, working on our own things. But I don't really remember the day, although in my imagination, the day that we came up with the idea to write a spicy novel was like sun-dappled, a beautiful summer day.
I do feel like all those writing days have the feeling of a sun-dappled, beautiful summer day. Writing next to you has always felt very sun-dappled, even though it's raining right now.
So talk about the behind the scenes. Let our listeners know what it was like to collaborate, work together. How did you do it?
What's so interesting about it is that I had never read anything Adele had written, and Adele had never read anything I had written before we started writing together. And normally you would need, at least I know you've co-written with other people, but I have never. I'm sort of very much a solo writer. And the fact that I was willing to sort of go all in and write with you, having no idea how you wrote, looking back is so strange to me.
It's sort of very whimsical. And, when I think about
you as a lawyer or Harvard Law, or just sort of, and also that you are there is a facet of you that's deeply, deeply organized. Like this was a goofy move.
I love that you believe I'm organized.
You are organized.
Only about a few very small things. Everything else is a disaster. But there's a few small things that, if you can see from the outside, it looks like I'm organized, but I am actually deeply disorganized.
I don't know. I always feel like you're helming things, like that you have a sense, and you're the one who was like, remember we have that?
That is true. I do keep us on task. Within this relationship, I might be the organized one. I do not believe in the larger world. Organized one.
I'm just heart eyes. I'm like, oh, thank goodness that Julie's here. I would have completely forgotten that.
But to better answer the question, I do think that it was sort of this strange leap of faith that we both took. And I think the reason why we did it is because it was just really fun. That was the one rule we had when we were writing. Well, we had a couple of rules. The first rule was only do if it's fun. Only do an hour a day. And the third rule is there's no such thing as too much. So every scene we wrote, we wanted to turn it up as high as we could turn it, turn 10 to 11.
And it was so fun.
You said over and over, Julie makes me laugh so hard. She is so funny. And I think you probably do that for Julie because I think you're funny.
And Absolutely. The two of you together.
But I have a question for you. So you're both parents. You've written this spicy book. How do you manage your role as moms and as writers? And
Tell me a little bit about that, and sort of what was the emotional toll? How do you write something like that's very when you dialed it up to 11, it was dialed up.
We were not joking about that part.
From the beginning, it is dialed up. So how do you balance that?
I think you have to let go of motherhood when you're writing. I mean, being a mother is a huge part of my identity, absolutely. And it definitely informs my writing if I'm writing about a mother and that's a facet of my character. But I do not write with the idea that my kids will ever read what I write, even though they do. I mean, my daughter Lily has read almost all of my books, all of my YA pretty much. And she very much wants to read Strike and Burn. And I have asked her very nicely, not quietly, I've asked her very gently to please not read it, even though I never censor what she reads, because I just feel like it might be a little uncomfortable for her to read and not be able to separate the fact that I and Adele wrote it, and she still has to look at us.
The same way you have to look at me.
Yes, exactly. And
I don't need her to be remembering some of the scenes when we talk after. We do actually discuss spicy books, though, because this generation is reading everything.
Right.
As much as the books are not intended for them, they are getting their hands on them. All of her friends are reading stuff that I'm shocked that they're reading. And I think as a parent, I have a totally different responsibility that's different than my writing job, right? Like if I'm in my office and I'm writing, Lily as an audience is irrelevant to me.
Right.
But when she is reading this stuff, not Strike and Burn necessarily, but books like Strike and Burn, we have very in-depth discussions about the books themselves, because I think if she's going to read it, she needs context, right? And she has to understand that this is not representative of the larger world. And some of the, sexual stuff in these books can be dangerous for young minds. And so I try and contextualize that for her so she doesn't, think that choking is something, for example. That was a line that Adele and I refused to cross. We do not want to have choking in the books. And I think because of the fact that there is a lot of choking in books that are spicy right now, there has been an increase in choking amongst a younger generation. And that's terrifying to me. So I do feel a responsibility as a parent and also as a writer.
Absolutely, as a writer. And I think that, there was something when we were first trying to figure out what is sexy, what is a turn on. We did come to this realization that this was an area that actually also we didn't find in the world of spicy stuff. Spicy, it wasn't really very spicy to us.
Yes, it's not interesting to me.
Yeah.
But I do think that I maybe want to clarify something I said earlier about how when I write, I leave behind the motherhood hat. And I guess that's not 100% true. But it's leaving behind the personal of the motherhood hat and more as the responsibility as a woman in the world, understanding that young women will be reading these books.
Yeah.
Which I think is slightly different.
Yeah. The women, particularly the protagonist, is not a weak woman. She is not a victim. And I think that that's important.
I'm so disappointed, Priscilla. I thought you were going to say you were commending us for the very good sex scene in the morgue.
I thought that's where you were going with this.
The sex scene in the morgue.
But speak to that, please.
I commended you for that. Yeah. Because that was not on my bingo card for the two of you.
When my little brother, my younger of the youngest brother was really young, there was something that really put him off. I can't remember, some spicy thing that happened at school, but he was really little, and he came home and his mom's asked him about it, who knows, and he went, "It was just Rick-sgusting." It was Rick-sgusting. And it's been a shorthand now, however old he is, for 40 years, that we just say
We
things
still
are Rick.
use it.
And we're like, that's Rick. And I said to Mom, this book's Rick. This book is Rick, but you gotta read it.
My own father read the book.
Yes.
And he reported back that it was his favorite of my books. And get this, not just because of the sex scenes. So he was impressed with our spiciness.
There's a writerliness to it. It's two people who love to write and wrote a book.
But to address your question about the strong woman behind the main character, and I think that was super important to us. We were delving into territory that is rife with misogyny. I mean,
Right.
there's the male main character is the head of an erotic gaming empire. And most or a lot of erotica out there is very male gaze focused. And so we wanted to switch his gaze to the female gaze and and we were very much concerned about sort of making it a feminist enterprise where women's pleasure was centered.
When you look at libraries, Mom, and in a school library, and what what do you think? Is there a role of sort of steamy fiction or romantic fiction in education? That's a tough question because first of all, I think kids need wide open access in libraries. I am I am so opposed to adults making decisions about what kids can read and what they should and shouldn't read because they're going to read whatever they want anyway. So let's take the stigma away. I know as a parent, when Adele and I were living overseas and there was very little to do other than to read, we both had our own library cards and we would take out our books. But Adele would also read her books and my books. And maybe because I was a young parent, I never censored it. I mean, we're both reading The Thornbirds together. And and when I look back about what that book is really about, but I think she sort of glossed over the stuff she didn't understand and got the story so we could talk about it. So I was not a censoring parent, and I think she was fine with that. And so I didn't tend to be with kids, and I've always been interested in what they read.
At least in the YA world, especially with all these book banners, I think one thing they don't realize is that just because someone is a young adult or a teen doesn't mean they don't have actual adult problems.
Right.
I mean, teens face all sorts of terrible things. They face grief, they face food insecurity, sexual assault. All this stuff actually does happen to them. And I think it's really important that they get exposed to literature that sort of speaks to their experience or makes them feel less alone in the world. And so I feel like it's really particularly insidious, the sort of move towards book banning right now.
Julie, that's such a good point that they are facing these issues. And they do have to have some way of reading about it, of putting themselves in the place, in that book, the emotional cost, and not just, not obvious trauma, but just even friendship traumas, even, breaking up with your best friend.
We were talking about the Colleen Hoover books and all of this sort of trauma in romance element that I think was very interesting to us when we were putting together the building blocks of like what Strike and Burn would be. And I felt like we had such good conversations about how you could have young people reading romance, but they're also sort of able in a safe way to process trauma, which I just thought was a really interesting piece of the creativity.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things we decided early on is how we were going to bring two very broken people together whose brokenness matched and complemented each other, sort of like how our weirdness complements each other. And when we did that, we had to sort of create these complicated backstories. And I think we very much wanted to give our readers the opportunity to process their own trauma in the safety of a warm romance around it.
Yes.
And the fantasy of this billionaire romance, right? So you get sort of a bit of both. You get sort of the darkness of reality paired with this lovely escape.
Yeah. And we did it again because then we wrote another book.
Yes, we did. The second one doesn't have sex in the morgue, though. Sorry.
I
know you're going to be so disappointed.
I'm not reading it then. I'm sorry. I won't be your babe.
You put sex in some interesting places in the second one, too.
Whose idea was that?
What, sex in the morgue?
Sex in the morgue?
This is when Adele and I point to each other at the same time.
We always say that Taylor Hutton is this third writer voice.
Oh, she comes in
We're her mom.
Does it?
Yeah, she comes in and does it. And we go, Taylor.
What did you do this time, Taylor?
You industrious little minx. All right, we'll take it.
It does, though, really feel, and I think you feel this way too. It does really feel like there's this third person who writes these books because Adele and I can't tell who wrote what.
You can't.
No, not at all. And sometimes I read it back and I'm like, who wrote this thing?
I was going to ask you about that. Did you, where did pride of authorship come in, or were you perfectly okay having each other edit or change or delete?
No, I don't think at any point I felt any sort of defensiveness about it. I mean, Adele, you once said that you thought we were both good stewards of the book, and I think because we brought that good stewardship to writing, it made it way easier not to feel offended.
I remember there was this one point in the process of writing Strike and Burn when I felt really overwhelmed by thinking I'm out of my depth. I don't, Julie's read a lot more of these, and I wrote something to her, and she sent back this gift that was just this little white goat with a smashed attached unicorn horn in a big rainbow mane wig. And the goat is staring at you with just eyes of hope and wonder, feeling like it's been entrusted to some big task. And the little goat rises up. And I never stop laughing about it. And we've passed that thing back and forth.
Every moment, every good review.
Yep.
Every
We
time.
might be goats with a fake unicorn horn and a rainbow wig, but yet we rise.
We rise. We sell another subrate. We send the goat.
I feel like it's the best way to meet imposter syndrome.
That's
It's
right.
like I might feel
Yes.
like an imposter, but I'm gonna be brave and put on my horn and
That's
my
right.
rainbow wig,
Yeah.
and I am getting
And I
my
look pretty good.
I mean, I always feel a little bit stressed when a book comes out. And with this one, I felt no anxiety because no matter what happens, every step of the process has been fun.
Yes.
So it was a win no matter what.
Yes. And I love to show that to the kids. Although that wasn't really my original intention. It was just a happy accident that I'm like, this is what work is. Work is, working long hours and we've had late nights on this book, and they know all about it, but they also really see that joy.
Yeah, the work has never really felt like work. It's always felt like play.
Yeah.
And yet it's work.
Oh, it's work.
Yep.
Well, I think sort of my take on this, as an insider outsider, I have enjoyed watching the two of you. I am so proud of you both. And I think it's also a statement about the importance of creativity and storytelling. And everyone should have the opportunity to really think about narrative and how creativity impacts your life. I have felt that having creativity infused in education is what keeps kids invested and believing in themselves. And so many times you really look out and you see a sea of little goats, and you're thinking, wonder what's going to happen. So, really, as an educator, our job is to celebrate the unicorn wigs and that moment when they just reach up and reach out and say, I am so excited about life. I love what I'm doing. I even like school. Even though that can be a challenge or hard, and both of you have celebrated your hard work. And that is an important lesson, that hard work is joyful. Hard work is worth the laughter, and it all becomes part of your process. And that is an important lesson for parents. And part of what we do on this podcast is talk about how you, as a parent, instill creativity in your child.
As a parent, one thing I really do try is I try to model embracing my curiosity about everything and being willing to try things that are scary. And I'm very vocal about my failures. And when I get a bad review or someone passes on an idea or, I mean, this job is full of failures every day, right? I mean, that's part of being a writer is you have to get used to rejection. And I'm very open with my children about those disappointments, and I show them that it's okay, that it's part of the process, and it doesn't say anything about me other than I'm an artist, and being an artist means getting knocked down. And when you get knocked down, you get right back up. And so I try to be very clear or not shy away from the uncomfortable bits of our job, and instead, show it to them.
Yeah.
So do you do the same?
I do. I mean, I love the journey, I think. I mean, to the point where the kids are like, we know, it's not it's the friends you make along the way. But writing is just about like, nope, nope,
Nope, nope.
nope. And
You suck.
Yeah, yeah, you have to really be a kangaroo. You have to really just.
I mean, really, there are people who will put on the internet, "You suck." Like, that happens.
Like, literally, you can get
a Goodreads review that says you suck.
Yeah, just like DNF. And you just have to be like, I don't care. I don't care.
I'm just hopping over here doing this fun stuff. So I think that is what I like to hope that the kids see that. But that's true in any profession. If you have attained a certain level, you get to hear you suck a lot. Right? And you have to say, I hear you and I don't agree and I'm moving on. And that's hard. And you get better at it.
But it's not easy.
Everything you do is out for public consumption. That is the life of a writer. Everything you write is just out there for everyone to critique.
That's true.
Which is so weird because being a writer is the most insular thing. It's a game you play in your head usually, except for this when we were co-writing. But generally, you're sitting alone in a room and not thinking about the next step when it goes out into the world. And so it's such a weird thing to suddenly have to stand out naked in front of the whole world and have them evaluate you. And you also have to put part of yourself into the work, or otherwise it won't sing. It's part of the process to sort of make it.
And
as
my
deeply
family's
personal.
always trying to figure out who in your books are you writing about.
I know.
I once saw in my dad's apartment, one of my first book, his copy of it, he had written in the margins names next to the characters that he thought matched the characters.
Stop.
He did. He was completely and totally wrong. None of them matched. He had it completely wrong.
That's funny.
But he could not read it, separating it himself from it, which is interesting because now, how many books later, a dozen books later, with Strike and Burn, clearly he did not think of me at all when he was reading it.
Yeah.
And I guess he just must have gotten used to the process of sort of separating or divorcing me from the work.
Yeah.
So I think we're ready for our book recs, which we have this section at the end of all of our podcasts where we recommend a book. And I'll go first. Okay. I'm going to recommend Strike and Burn by Taylor Hutton.
She's a hot
new
debut
writer.
author from
5 stars.
Gary, Indiana.
I think I saw her
5 stars
with a horn coming around the corner.
She's very glamorous.
Yes, she's super cool.
I am going to recommend, it seems sort of an odd choice, but I loved it in thinking about generational views of sexuality, of times, politics, etc. But I loved it. It's Necessary Trouble, growing up at mid-century, and it's a memoir by the historian Drew Gilpin Faust, who was president of Harvard. She's exactly my age. She grew up in a very similar circumstance, and I loved the idea of the multi-generations. And this is the way I feel about being a reader for Strike and Burn, and I can't wait to be a reader for your second.
Axe and Grind coming next January. If I can recommend a book, I'm going to recommend Vladimir by Julia May Jones. Is that who wrote it?
I think so. You recommended it to me a couple of years ago. And you recommended it to me. Oh, I love it.
I know.
Such a good book. It starts with the most outrageous scene, and then she sort of backs into the scene. You're wondering, how will they ever get here? And it's about a middle-aged woman's sort of sexual awakening with a much younger colleague. And it feels very much a precursor to Miranda July's All Fours.
Julie, thank you so much for coming into the studio that I built just for you. And
Thank you.
Also for sharing your wisdom and your humor and your just wonderful self. I feel as proud of you as I do my daughter. And when I went to your book launch, I thought, it's like having two daughters,
Aw.
and it just was so exciting, and I just felt such pride.
I just sat there beaming. Unfortunately, I was right behind your husband, so mostly I was beaming at his head.
It was a wonderful lunch. It was
It
so cozy.
was
All our
so
friends and
lovely,
family.
and everybody loved it, and I just sat there beaming for both of you.
Thank you so much. You're
thank
going to
you
make
for
me
coming.
cry. That's so lovely. It's really lovely.
Thanks, Mom.
Thank you for having me.
See you next week, Adele.